We're here to talk a little bit of lighting, IES, government relations. Brienne, what's your specialty?
So I was a lighting designer for 8 years and then came to the IES in May.
Oh, in May.
So I work with Alex.
What are we doing here, Alex?
We are here.
Government
I'll
relations.
kick it off. We're kind of talking the TM-21 and
Oh, I forgot
LED
about that,
lights.
yes.
Yeah. So let's start that off. Give us a little.
Do we want to talk about our roles at the IES?
Let's start there.
To sort of frame that for our listeners.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure. So I just came on board as education coordinator with IES in May. Prior to that, I was
Tom's fired. I didn't know that.
Oh, no. He's director of education. And then, but I was a lighting designer for 8 years before that. So I'm Detroit-based, born and raised, still there.
Represent.
Detroit's it's a good town.
It is.
I've been to Detroit.
We've been. Yeah. It's great.
And I'm Alex Baker. I do government affairs and public policy work for the IES. Yeah, and I've been there about 2 years now. So Brienne and I are both newbies. LED lifetime is what we were hoping to talk about.
Oh, that's right.
About.
Sorry, I forgot about our last one. Was
Sometime.
Yeah.
I mean, we can talk about other things. Too,
Sure.
We met because we were whining about it a
Yeah.
little bit.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
how we met.
that's right.
So
Years ago.
the 2019 is the year of the warranty pick in the lighting world. I declared it in January 2019.
You declared it?
Yeah, I declared it because there's just so many LED lights going out. The promises, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we're gonna
It's
raise
about that time.
we're gonna raise the dark curtain on all the promises, or what are we gonna do here? TM-21 is the life of LEDs, is it not?
Well, so here's the problem, and maybe Bree can kick it off with the problem from the perspective of a lighting specifier.
Yeah, so I think that the important part that kind of got forgotten when all these lifetime and reliability claims came up was that the design community was getting fed like a lot of misinformation because it all sounded so sweet, right? Staff people are getting trained. I mean, sales representatives and that kind of thing are getting trained in all of the nuances of LED to the extent with which they understood it at the time. And by that, I just mean that 20 years sounded awesome. This is going to last forever. And it was hard on the designers because we got lots of visitors saying anywhere between 10 and 20
Brian,
years.
take that mic and just move it a little bit up and close. There you go. Yeah, right there.
Okay.
Ooh, that sounds so much nicer.
So we would get, this is going to last 150,000 hours, or this is going to last. And so the design community started believing everything. Well, then we have clients. I mean, we have liability insurance, right? And we have clients that were like, that wanted to believe it too. And so the designers became these middle ground people of trying to convince everybody these were going to last without enough information. And so I met Alex shortly after I was trying to navigate why all of this was being misused. Because if you look at TM-21, it's just the emitters. That's it. It is divorced from the driver and other failure points. And so all these manufacturers are putting on cut sheets how long things lasted based on just the emitters, as if the emitters were like hanging out on this table with no other components with them. So,
and for those who are not familiar, if you were to take apart an LED bulb that you buy at the store, you'd crack the plastic cover off and you would see probably 6 to 8 LEDs or emitters. It's kind of like a transistor radio. We say LED bulb, it's kind of like that. You're describing the parts that are inside. So, yeah.
Right. So in doing a little bit more research about that and comparing manufacturer claims, I was like, something's really wrong with this. The projections seemed unbelievable.
There's nothing new about that.
Turns out that they are unbelievable.
What was the longest you saw? Do you recall?
300,000 hours plus.
Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing new about that though.
No, but I do think
our
that
rating has been a piece of crap in the lighting business since I've been in the business, and then since my dad's been in the business.
There is something new though.
What's that?
Before solid state lighting, the way that you would establish lifetime for most LED or most light sources is that you would burn them a given lot of lamps, say 100 of them, and you would burn them until 50% of them failed, and then that number of hours is what you would call the life. We don't have that time with a product that's rated for 50,000 hours, right? So the way that we do lifetime with LEDs is inherently different. We'll measure for, say, the LEDs themselves for maybe 8,000-10,000 hours total, and then you stop, and then you project into the future with calculations.
I thought that was a product cycle.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
that's one of the problems we've had over the years.
You know, I mean, T5HO, you think about T5HO, it seemed to happen fast, but
Yeah.
you know, it stayed the same for a long time.
I love that technology.
Did you? Yeah.
I do.
So the you know, the idea, but the problem I think is not that people lied about or people were misinformed, or that somebody made a mistake, or that everybody was drinking Drano, whatever it is that you want to call it, that happened
Or
with
bourbon.
the bourbon, with the lifetime of LED lighting. You know, I think the problem is that it was sold so hard on the long life.
Right.
You know, like it was like these bulbs are never going to burn out, and you know this is amazing, and you're never going to change a light bulb again. You're going to retire,
Right.
you
Right.
know, and that just didn't happen.
We had clients say, I'm going to retire before this is my problem.
Yep.
Anyway.
For
So
sure.
as long as you can say 10 years, I'm good. And so designers would go out and say, it's warranted for 5 years. Like if they thought it was going to last 10, it'd be warranted for 10. If they thought it was going to last 15, it'd be warranted for 15. Like essentially, it was that balance of like, you get sold so hard on a 300,000 hour life or whatever it is.
Okay.
Those are a little extreme, but you're warranting it for 5. So what happened in that disconnect? But it's still hard to tell a client. And I mean, I work for the IES now, so now I'm on the education side, which is part of the reason I'm here. It's still hard for general consumers to understand that, like, you put an LED downlight in, and you're going to rip the whole thing out. This is not a bulb
Well,
world.
one of the
right?
things that I think is important to remember is that we may have increased the life of the source, but we've decreased the life cycle of the fixture.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Like the life cycle of the luminaire is what, 10 years?
Right.
I mean, the life cycle of a fluorescent 2x4 troffer is 40 years.
Right.
Or 50 years.
Yeah.
With
Right.
replaceable components that are cross manufacturers, and you can interchange them whenever you want. Ballast, sockets, lamps, and it's all like NEMA, whatever. And
Well, and you don't violate UL, right? So
exactly, there you go. That's another point. Yeah.
fluorescent was, I mean, any other lamping technology where you just replaced a lamp, people are like, oh, it's fine. You can replace the LED board, but you can't do it in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There's always this weird stipulation of like, yeah, these are totally replaceable, but you send it back to the factory, have it replaced, and send it back out to the field, because the minute
What
you
are the
have
factories in
dust
China?
ingress and dust.
You know, one of the things I was pleased about at the annual conference here is to hear that there's some manufacturers in North America who are starting to embrace Zaga. Zaga is a standardization scheme developing interconnectors for LED modules, LED drivers, and such that the luminaire can remain in place. And when it hits a certain level of light output depreciation, you can go and replace the LEDs in there. Just pop out one board and pop in a new one. I think that's pretty great. That's a good movement in the right direction.
It makes sense. Is it ever going to take off? I've seen a few fixtures that say Zaga compliant, and nobody cares.
It really has not taken off in North America, but in Europe, it seems to be getting some traction.
So is a prerequisite, and maybe you don't know, is a prerequisite for the Zaga compliance that it has to be, it maintains its UL rating when you replace the board in the field?
Fine question. I don't know the intersection of Zaga.
Like it would be an
and
interesting
safety listing, Sam.
idea to me to figure it out, because how do you say to somebody who doesn't, I mean, they care enough about the technology that they bought it and put it in because they had to, but after that, I mean.
Okay, so you're the education coordinator.
I am.
What's your title?
Government Affairs and Public Policy.
You sell light bulbs every day for a living.
I do.
So do I. We have no idea whether you can replace an LED board in a fixture or not, the four of us. Like, what the hell's going on in this business, bro?
Are you right?
Like, that's crazy.
Right. And
Right.
we're pushed a lot of times to say purpose-built fixtures are the way to go. But then when you bring up the point that you have to replace the whole fixture, is it the way to go?
Right, and designers are designing for whatever aesthetic or prereqs they were given by the client, but then, I mean, there's a very real thing that they were competing against TM-21 in particular, where designers were saying to a client, your restaurant looks great, but in 5 years, the end of your warranty. The only thing we had to rely on was a TM-21 projection after that. So 5 years, your warranty's done. If it fails in year 6 and all of them fail, you have to rip them all out.
Yeah. And
it's a pretty major thing to tell a client and then be like, I'm a designer, so I only understand that after the warranty, it's all on you.
Yeah, well,
but we were missing any more. We had nothing else to give them.
Right. A lot of the fixtures too change. And over the 5 years, you take a recessed can example. How many times has that look and design changed for all of them that you've done. So if one you do 5 years ago and then one burns out, now you replace one that looks different than the rest of the other 10 you have.
Totally. And we're in
It's a
this
nightmare.
weird, like, it's almost like fast fashion, right? I mean, lighting's going to become, I don't know. Will be almost like the fashion industry in some ways, where things just, it's going to be a constant term.
I learned that from Jeff Dross at, where is he? Kitchener Lighting, is it? He said exactly that.
Really?
Lighting industry is a fashion industry. That's
Yeah.
what it is. I mean, especially over on the ALA side, maybe not so much on the commercial side. Recessed cans only look, they look like recessed cans.
Yeah.
The styles for fixtures, they evolve just the same way as, clothing and ties and shirts and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and if you're replacing it all the time.
Yeah.
So to break down the life options, there's L70, there's L80, there's TM-21. Give us a rundown.
Maybe I can give you a little rundown on this. So there's two standards that people need to know about, or at least that we're talking about here today. So when it comes to LED products, they can fail in a few different ways. You can fail abruptly. Some people use the word catastrophically, but it's not really a catastrophe when a light source goes out, right?
Because you're not paying for them.
Yeah.
I like you.
I'm like, that's a catastrophe. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
It's okay. So a fixture can fail abruptly, meaning it just stops putting out light, or it can fail parametrically, which means the light output goes down over time, or the color shifts over time, or in some way its performance is shifting to an unacceptable level. And so what happens with LEDs is that they do fail parametrically over time. They shift in color, or they shift that they lose light output. So what we have is two standards that establish the luminous flux maintenance, which is a way of saying how long does it maintain a certain amount of light output, and how fast does that go down. So the first standard is called LM80. It's IES LM80. And so the LEDs that are inside of the lamp or the luminaire are tested according to LM80. And they
tell the listeners what LM means. What is that?
Lighting measurement.
Lighting measurement.
Yeah. So if it's a standard from IES and it begins with LM, then it's part of the lighting measurement series, and that standard is intended to be used by laboratories typically.
And we did ask, but a little off. But is there a 79 and an 81 and an 82?
Yeah. So LM79 is a measurement is a method of measurement for characterizing the overall electrical and photometric and colorimetric performance of a lamp or luminaire. So it's a moment in time. It's not a long-term test. Okay. If you want to know how much light it puts out, what color temperature, what's the CRI, what's the TM30 score, etc., you take an LM79 test, which can be done either in an integrating sphere or a goniophotographer.
Right,
so that's
which
one
means
of the tests.
And the output of LM79. So this is the output of these are important to me anyway.
The test reports, yeah.
So LM79 is rarely utilized by the general application community, with the exception of the fact that an IES file is what is born out of LM79.
Yeah.
So your data from LM79 is what informs that IES file that you download and run your calculations with. And all that.
We're getting super dorky, but the people out there, they want to know, why is my light bulb burned out?
It tells you what the light bulb or the lamp or the luminaire is going to do in terms of performance. So LM80, you might measure for say 10,000 hours, and then you take those 10,000 hours of data. It's a curve. So that's actual measured data. The next step is IES TM-21, which is a technical memorandum, TM. And what that does is it takes your 10,000 hours of data in this example, and it projects it out into the future to, say, 60,000 hours. And so you'll know by that calculation a rough estimate of how much light output is it going to be giving you at 60,000 hours.
So you put it in a microwave, you cross your fingers, and you times by 10.
Yeah, basically.
But there's one huge problem here, though. You can take the LM80 data and you can project it, and according to the calculation, you could end up at, say, I don't know, 350,000 hours until it reaches 70% of its initial light output. That'll be the initial calculation.
That's your L70.
That's your uncapped L70 value, but that's not a correct number. It's kind of like saying, walking up to the 10-yard line and you kick a field goal, and then with that confidence, you go back to the other end of the stadium, try to do a field goal, and have the same confidence you're going to get it through the uprights.
I thought it was I'm still going to love you in the morning. No. Sorry, I laugh at my own jokes.
So there's a cap in There's one rule in TM-21 that's the most important rule in the entire standard. It's sacrosanct. If you don't follow this, the entire standard means nothing. It means literally nothing. If you don't implement what's called the 6x cap. So if you, coming back to that example, if you have 10,000 hours of data and you project it out into the future, the longest legitimate claim you can make, whether it's L70, L80, L90, L10, whatever it is, the longest legitimate projection claim you can make would be 60,000 hours, because that 6x rule says the longest you can project is 6 times the amount of LM80 data you have. So if you're a specifier and you have a luminaire manufacturer coming in saying, hey, I got this fixture, it's rated for 300,000 hours, which is 34 years, by the way.
Of continuous use.
Of continuous operations. It's absurd.
So
it's
my
an absurd claim
Atlas
to make.
Lighting's been in the business for 350,000 hours.
So if you try to make a claim of 300,000 hours and you have only 10,000 hours of data, that
makes
totally
you a liar.
bogus
Actually.
claim.
Yeah,
It makes you a liar.
For sure.
And the TM-21 was never meant to project the lifetime of the whole fixture.
And then that's the other thing.
So the thing that kills me is that, like, that wasn't the point. The point was more on, we needed something for manufacturers who were buying emitters from other manufacturers, right? Because I don't care where you get your emitters from, but it was the integrators were making choices based on, okay, in a lab, the 6x rule is awesome. We're going to pick you.
So when you
over
say
you.
emitters, just to clarify for everyone, you're talking about the LEDs,
the
right?
actual LEDs. So if I want to buy,
diode.
right, so TM-21 was like, it gave fixture or product designers or fixture manufacturers a way to say, a way for them to compare.
So you're saying it was misused. It was used as a lifetime projector when it shouldn't have been.
Hugely, yeah,
exactly.
it still is, for what it's worth. I mean, people are like, oh yeah, our L70 is 100,000 hours. I would have so many questions for that person. I mean, I really, seriously. But
you're an expert, Brienne. You're an expert, Alex.
Right.
I don't know what the hell I am. I'm a podcaster. You're a podcaster. We ask these kind of questions.
Yeah,
so,
right.
So to expand on what Brienne's saying here, so say you have a projection to 100,000 hours on the LEDs. The problem is, if the plastic on the luminaire is of cheap quality and it shifts in color, you could have the plastic, turn wildly yellow inside of a year.
I don't sell any lenses, do you? Come on, we sell tons of lenses in the lens business.
Right.
The LEDs inside are performing great, but if you haven't factored in the degradation of the plastic material, then you're going to have a horribly yellow fixture after 1 year. Light output from the LEDs on the inside is great.
So how do we rate the entire pack?
So that's the problem, is people take these LM80, these TM-21 projections of LM80 data, and they think, oh, that represents the performance of the entire luminaire. It's only the LEDs.
But it's almost like everybody forgot that we replaced ballasts. Like, the driver for LED is the ballast. I mean, if you have to go that way,
it's a piece of electronics,
right? So TM-21 is like taking a T8 lamp and holding it in your hand and being like, in a vacuum with perfect whatever, where you never had to replace the ballast, this is what it's running like. But
times 25, hold the 2, subtract the 5, and times by 6, and then
But it's almost like people forgot there are other components in the lamping, the whole lamping, right? So
maybe we should tell the marketing people to stop running in the lab, grabbing the first piece of paper they see and running over and putting it on a Excel sheet.
I've trained marketing people
that up
in the past. So some marketing people are actually hiring people from the design community to give them feedback and say, okay, maybe we step to the right or left a little bit too far. And designers are giving them feedback. But again, I would challenge most people to try to find what happens to the driver inside a fixture, right? I mean, what do you do? Where do you find it? It's rated for mean time between failure, which means a whole different rating. So it's the whole system, to your point. Now there was some TM work on that.
So there's it's not out of the IES. I think it's an ANSI standard. I think it was developed by NEMA. There's now a LED driver robustness test. I don't think they call it reliability. I'm not sure.
But TM-26 or 28, there was a. Okay.
Yeah, it's something else.
We'll talk later.
Yeah, why number them? Just call it a LED driver robustness test. I can understand.
There's an ANSI standard for that.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, so you can characterize the robustness of an LED driver over time. Because again, you can have LEDs, they're running great, but the driver's a piece of crap.
So everyone's running for cover. The bigs are out of the business. there's a vacuum of leadership, and we're just sitting back after 6 years of an LED boom going, ooh.
Yeah.
Has this business lost its integrity, Brienne?
No, but I do think it's lost its, I mean, I don't know that I think we didn't come out of the gate in the LED realm with listening as much as we should have been to people like Alex and other people who are working on things like TM-21 and had all the information.
No, non-lighting people took over the business. That's what happened.
That might be part of it. I don't think that that credibility or integrity as the profession as a whole was an issue. I think in the race to get product out, I think people weren't listening. They weren't asking the right questions. They weren't paying attention to the experts, and it became this very strange.
It's a competition between the quarterly report and the guys in the lab making the making the units.
Right.
Got to make the numbers. Got to. What are you talking about? What's this? No, well, hang on. There's some few things I got to tell you. No. We didn't get this thing out. Lightfair is coming up in 6 weeks, buddy. But this is coming out right now.
Well, and if
It's like
you
a combination, right?
And I mean, I agree with you, but in addition to that, if you would have been paying attention to the business model implications of telling someone something was going to last 300,000 hours, what I want to say is, so you're comfortable if I never buy another fixture from you again in my career? So people came out of the gate with these super long lifetime projections, and I thought, but you can't sell us anything after that, right? I mean, I'm not buying a lamp every 30,000 hours like it was.
Right.
Or so it was an interesting business model of really, really, really long promises up front.
The promises, not promises.
Right.
And you mentioned
Promises.
Promises.
It's more than just one promise. It's two.
Right. But I mean,
I'll still love you in the morning, man.
I honestly almost wished when I was still a designer that people would have said, this is probably going to fail in 5 years.
Yeah.
So we're going to warranty it for 5 years because we don't want to pay for it after that. But in 5 years, we'll be there for you with a new fixture. You'll like it. Instead, it was like, these are going to last 100,000 now. It was such a strange thing, I thought.
Yeah.
From a business model perspective, it wasn't. I mean, we know cars degrade, right? Like, you know how many 100,000 miles you might get out of a car, and then the dealership's emailing you, when your lease is up or whatever. I'm like, why are we not in that system of thinking where somebody saw the business model in more?
Like Jaga is so obvious.
Yeah.
Like it's such an obvious. Like someone should pick up the phone right now. Hey, Donald. Yeah, listen to me for a second here, pal. All right, I need you to sign an executive order right now, saying that all light fixtures that are made need to be Jaga compliant. Huh? I gotta tweet that out right now? Yeah, tweet it out right now, buddy.
It's gonna be huge.
I mean, it's so obviously the solution to this problem.
You mentioned marketing, and I think it's the intersection of marketing and engineering that is the problem. And here's why. You take the LMAD data, you run a TM-21 projection, it results in a piece of paper that says TM-21 report at the top. On that report, there's the projected L70 and there's the reported L70. Those are two distinct values. One is the uncapped value, which is unrealistic, statistically invalid, doesn't mean anything. It literally doesn't mean anything. If you get
TM-21 doesn't mean anything.
No, that's not what I said. That value, the projected
I'm trying to be clear here with the listeners.
The projected
And we're
L7
done.
projected L70 value is a wild uncapped value. The reported L70 value does mean something. But when both values are on the piece of paper and they're both next to the L70 symbol, marketing gets that and says, oh, well, this number is clearly much larger. We're going to use that.
That looks better.
And there are some companies out there, one in particular comes to mind, that have made their entire business model. They've crafted their entire business model around, as far as I can tell, misusing TM-21, ignoring the 6X cap.
So who's the lighting police? Is the IES the lighting police, Alex?
Designers and engineers, I think, got smarter, but we got smarter late. I mean, and I think you were saying the specification community is where things stop and you have to push back.
It has to be the specifiers who push back.
But TM-21, and I appreciate it and I understand it. However, it was the scope of that document, even to your point about us heading into these nerdy rabbit holes, the scope of that document was
I can write
not
that down, nerdy
was
ramblings.
not easily translatable to designers and specifiers. It wasn't written for that. It was written as a technical memorandum. What we were missing at the time was an educational component that bridged the gap between here's what TM-21 does and doesn't do, and here's how to translate it.
I think one of the problems was, more than anything else, was that there was a period of time where the IES was trying to figure all this out, and different lighting people were trying to figure all this out, and they were screaming, but they were drowned out by the stampede.
Right.
You know, like I had a guy on my show, I can't remember, I didn't even remember the guy's name anymore, but he was saying 2 years ago or whatever, he was saying, street lighting is a $40 billion debacle.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, stop, don't say that too loudly. But now it's kind of like, maybe he's right, you know?
Right.
There's a lot of glare bombs. There's all kinds of problems out there. And
right.
So, I mean, which is the right standard here? We've been talking for, what, half an hour now? And which one should the consumers, which one should the guy, let's say you have a guy out there right now, Brienne, and he's selling light bulbs, or a gal out there, she's selling light bulbs.
So I might have a different answer than Alex, but now I'm curious, but that's
okay.
metal. TM-21, here's my ideal answer. I trust a manufacturer to take TM-21 data, interpret that data as they need to, which includes the 6X rule, let me know what their lifetime is, and then give me a warranty. That's it. It is, we have a lifetime of our emitters. We understand the rest of the components better than you do. Here's our warranty.
But there's also now an ANSI standard for the driver. So you as the specifier can also say, I need to see the ANSI, and I'm forgetting the standard number, but I need to see the test report for that, that driver.
But here's the crappy part about that, from a designer's point of view. We have to be application experts. We have to understand how light works on different materials. We have to convince the clients we're spending money on. We've got to run all the calculations and do all the drawings and pull all the spec sheets. The reality is that you can't expect a designer for every single product to be like, okay, driver manufacturer, okay, emitter manufacturer, you've now been trusted by this big manufacturer, and now I'm going to reverse engineer and tell these big name manufacturers, well, I'm not thrilled about your driver choice for downlight XYZ74A this quarter. Can you maybe pick a different driver? I mean, designers got criticized for trying to reverse engineer product.
How do you know what the driver is? I can never figure that out unless I open the fixture. They don't, I mean, you might have to ask the manufacturer and dive into it, but it's never straightforward. And I've been in jobs where we've had wall packs, for example, same company that delivered it, big name company, 2 different drivers.
That's right, because no luminaire manufacturer in their right mind is going to single source.
Yeah,
right.
They're going to have multiple streams,
it's just like
and that's going to be the case for the LEDs inside of the luminaire as well.
So I hate
to complicating things further.
Yeah,
and even in some ways, even worse is, let's say I do everything maybe Alex is suggesting, and I'm fully aware of what's going on the driver's side, emitters for or LEDs for every fixture I've got on a job. At the time that I stamp the cut sheet and say, yeah, okay, I approve of this, that job site or those fixtures don't get purchased for another 6 months, a year.
And then it changes.
Maybe 2 years.
And they don't get delivered to the job site for another few weeks after that. I mean, we've had when I was in design, we had jobs that lasted 2 years, 3 years. There is absolutely no way you can do quality assurance, which is why I come back to, on the design side, which is why I come back to, I'm not stamping approval on all those components. It's not like when I buy a car, I don't say, well, how's your airbag manufacturer doing? How's your tire manufacturer doing? I mean, I buy the car from the company I expect will support it throughout the entire life.
That's the black curtain right there. We're talking. That's the black curtain you're raising right there, right?
Right.
It's like people are turning to the. Well, you should have checked that out. What are you talking about?
It's not me. It's the driver.
Who's the driver? I'm not driving. What are you talking about, driver? I thought there was a ballast in that thing. Like what? You know what I'm talking about? It's like what?
Yes. And it is always the weakest link.
Oh yeah, let's throw the can down the road. No, it's his fault. No, it's that guy's fault over there.
But look at airbag recall.
Sure.
You can take every other safety precaution.
Sure.
I'm from Detroit.
And it's still GM's problem.
I'm going for the cars.
but it's still GM's problem or whoever's.
You got it.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, and so they can do every other safety precaution in that car. The airbag fails and somebody dies. Right? It happens, right? Airbag recalls, not uncommon. And it still comes down to you made a bad choice on your supply chain.
All right, I got the next question for you. Ready for this one?
Maybe it should
Okay.
be for Alex.
No, it's just I'm just going to throw a concept out there, right?
Yep.
So the fact is that you know, I'm going to make the point that everyone here at at the conference, and we're all good people and all sort of stuff, but the people who bought these fixtures got lied to, actually.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like the city of Detroit,
Oh,
that's really like of all the cities, you think, like you saw that article came out, right, about Detroit's outdoor lighting. Right?
yes.
Okay. And as soon as
Several.
I saw that, I thought of all the cities that can't handle this right now, of all the places in America that can't afford, that really need that payback, that really needed that long life, that was down and out and bankrupt and like, oh, you know what we should do is we should change our lights to LED because then we won't have to pay all the maintenance costs. We'll save energy. Of
Right.
all the cities that were betrayed by the business, Detroit is one of them, for sure.
That's correct.
There's a couple up in Ontario as well that are, struggling with their budgets that, and then, but we're now the new thing coming out now is, we're going to make everybody healthy with the lighting too. Like,
right. Yeah.
Come on, man.
Or
We got to fit
prevent
the, yes.
I mean, Detroit, I have so many things to say about what happened in Detroit, but I will say that, again, a lot of the streetlights that they had issues with were not bought by a large reputable manufacturer. The ones they've had issues with, I want to say that. So Detroit has some dirty power issues and some other things that make streetlights go out
I hate that
intermittently.
excuse.
But
you know
no.
what?
I'm just saying the
I'm so
intermittent
sick
stuff
of that.
is the intermittent stuff is different.
I'm so
But
sick
the
of that.
major
No,
failures-
it's the pulsing of the electricity.
Well,
No,
I mean,
dude.
that's not an unreal thing. But regardless, my whole point is the ones that they've had issues with in massive quantities was a huge issue of reliability of the manufacturer. It's the same thing. I'm gonna go back to the car analogy, is that they should have been able to depend on somebody for that. And it is not uncommon. We used to push for this a lot, to negotiate that labor is a part of it. So if we have you hate catastrophic failure, but I'm going to use it.
No, Detroit has had a catastrophic
So
failure.
we go with a
for
catastrophic failure. We're talking huge, massive lights goes out, and it's a safety issue, right? So that's, I would say, catastrophic-ish, if that gives me some wiggle room. Labor could have been negotiated that if we have a huge failure, then Mr. Manufacturer, you get to pay for labor because you sold a city who needed this the most, one of the cities who needed it the most, But the other thing is that I don't know that the city was informed enough to engage the right people. This goes back to the listening thing. Like, as far as I know, independent lighting designers were not involved in any of those decisions. And I got to say that hiring somebody who knows what they're doing, I mean, they don't have to know as much as we do, but they do have to know enough to help vet what's going on, to help vet what they're being told, to help say, yeah, that $300,000 claim is not right.
And
so let's dive into it a little deeper. That's what the independent professional is for. That's what the IES is supposed to be doing, is enabling practitioners to say, you know what, we have enough information through the IES, through these different testing metrics and other things. We know how to compare product A to product B. We do. If you pay attention to enough to what the IES does, in general, that we have been armed with the right information. It was just not getting the right people in the right place, unfortunately, which is not uncommon for Detroit.
Yeah, it's about price too. I think we sell projects all the time, and we try to go through all this, and here's why this one's better, and then, oh yeah, but that one's 20% less.
Right.
Yeah, but this. Oh yeah, the price is lower.
I mean,
I think there's that, but I think there's also I think there's price, but there's also whether it was more or less, nobody knew how long this stuff was going to last, actually.
But there were enough people who knew what to ask to frame it in a way that the city got more information. Let's say there are enough people who knew the right questions in Detroit, because I'm from there, so I know the general community. I was president of the IES section there for a couple of years.
Did you talk to did they interview you guys when they were making this decision? Did they bring in the IES section?
No. But so, and maybe that's a disconnect of the city doesn't know, or cities in general don't know what the IES can or cannot offer them in their local area.
Sure.
I don't know. But I mean, what's your take on it? I mean, the Detroit issue, maybe not in minutia, but what would you do if you could have redesigned that process?
Well, what's coming to mind as we're talking here is that the good news is that the industry is consolidating. So whereas 5 and especially 10 years ago, the market was flooded with people who the previous week were selling widgets in Sky Mall. And now they're making light fixtures because because to your point, it's just electronics. You're building circuit boards like you're making circuit boards for anything else at this point. So I think the good news is that the industry is consolidating, and brand reputation is again important, and people want to reinforce their brand reputation. And the way that that's done is by ensuring that their brand means that their product is going to last a long time, so that we get to a point again, as we have with preceding technologies, where the brand reputation ensures that the product's going to last, and it takes that burden of evaluating test reports and reverse engineering and all of that off of specifiers, so that we'll get to a point where specifiers can just confidently say that brand has treated us well and has been reliable over time, that one hasn't. And so I think we're finally getting to that point, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, folks, you got to go to kurtzon.com. That's KURTZON.com, baby. And you know what I love about Kurtzon? It's funny because the whole 10-year warranty thing, Greg, came out a little while ago. Remember that? The whole 10-year blast?
Yeah. Right?
And Kurtzon they have the 5/10. Right? They had to respond with something because everyone's saying it's a 10-year warranty, but they came out with the 5/10. And it's like, these components last 5, these ones last 10.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right?
Perfect.
So that's why you got to go to kurtzon.com, folks. KURTZON.com, baby. 4 generations, 121 years old, family owned. I know the president. Come on, man. Kurtzon.com is one of the strongest brands in this business. What do you got to say about that, Greg?
I would have to agree. You summed it up well, and this is a topic we could go on forever about, I think,
Yeah,
and
for
until
sure.
we get an answer, but at least we're taking strides towards it, I think, and that's the important part. So keep after it.
So go to KURTZON.com. Brienne, Alex, second time, Brienne. First time, thank you for coming on and talking to it. That was a good conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.